Hey, I'm Dan. Have you ever had to trust someone you didn't know personally? Let me tell you guys a story. This past summer, I went skydiving for the first time ever. And when you go skydiving for the first time, you have to go with an instructor strapped to your back, and he's got the parachute. So I had to trust him with my life when we jumped out of that plane, because if he didn't pull the chute, we were going down. In today's God story, we're gonna look at how a high-ranking officer trusted Jesus to do something super important for someone he cared for. Watch this.
And today we're going to talk about being faithful, which is about Hey everyone, it's Alyssa. Welcome to today's God story. Okay, so this one time I was planning a surprise party with one of my friend's moms for my friend. And here's the thing you need to know about me. I am horrible at keeping secrets, but I knew that I had to keep this secret in order to be loyal to my friend and make sure that she would have an amazing time and be so surprised at the surprise party. So no matter how many times she asked me, no matter how many times I was so tempted to tell her how much fun we were gonna have, I kept the secret, and on the day of the surprise party, she was so surprised and had a great time. We're in the series about Jesus' miracles, and today we're gonna talk about being faithful, which is like being loyal to a friend. And we're gonna talk about miracles too. What's a miracle, you might be wondering? Well, a miracle is an amazing event that happens because of God's power. It's something that might seem impossible to us, but is made possible because of God. We can't always explain why some people experience miraculous things and others don't, but what we do know is that miracles are an amazing expression of God's love. And that reminds me of today's big idea. We can experience God's love when we are faithful. When we talk about being faithful to Jesus, we mean we believe all of who he is and what he's done. We can experience God's love in so many different ways, but one of those ways is when we remain faithful despite awkward or weird circumstances. We're gonna see what this looks like in today's story from Luke chapter 7. Luke is the third book of the New Testament after Matthew and Mark and right before John. In today's story, Jesus had been traveling around and teaching and healing people. He wasn't healing people with medicine or bandages, but with miracles. Jesus had also been telling people many things about the kingdom of God. And then he entered a town called Capernaum, a fishing village. In that town, there was a servant of a Roman officer who was very sick. This Roman officer cared a lot about his servant and didn't want him to die. So remember, back then, they didn't have the medicine like we have today, no antibiotics or things like that. But Jesus was in town, and he was famous for doing amazing things like healing people. So the Roman officer sent some well-respected Jewish leaders to Jesus to beg him to come and heal his servant. So they went, they talked to Jesus, and Jesus started on his way. He started walking to the Roman officer's house. So as they walked, and remember, they walked a lot back then because they didn't have cars or planes or bicycles, so they were walking. And as they walked, a few of the Roman officer's friends came and interrupted them with a message. The Roman officer had sent them with a message, and here's what that message was. Lord, don't trouble yourself. I am not good enough to have you come into my house. That is why I did not even think I was fit to come to you. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. I myself am a man who is under authority, and I have soldiers who obey my orders. I tell this one, go, and he goes. I tell that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. The Roman officer somehow knew that Jesus commanded huge authority. And even though he might not have known exactly who Jesus was, he believed that Jesus could command something from a distance and it would happen. This Roman officer was faithful to Jesus, even though he barely knew him, and showed that through his words and belief. When Jesus heard the Roman officer's message, he was amazed. He turned to the people around him and said, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel. In other words, amongst the people who are God's chosen people, the people we would think would have the most faith, Jesus hadn't seen faith like the Roman officers. And of course, when the friends returned to the Roman officer's home, they found that the servant had been completely healed. As people who follow Jesus, we have access to a hope through our faith that other people might not have seen before. We can experience God's love when we are faithful, and that's true in every aspect of our life, at school, at home, with your family, wherever you are. Friends, this has been so much fun, and I will catch you next time.
The Roman officer believed that Jesus could heal his servant, even when things got really bad. And they all experienced God's love when he did heal him. Let's watch Mark's story. I want to show you how great God is.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'd like to share a story with you that happened right here in this barn. That happened to me when I was about 10 or 11 years old. This is a typical North American barn. It stands probably around 50 feet tall. It's made of wood. It is where we would use to store the hay and straw up in the mow here. And we would stack it. And we would stack it like bricks. And one way and one the other way. And we would stack that up as high as we could to the ceiling. What we would do as kids when the hay was stacked up really high is we would go to the top and we would bury ourselves in like moles, and we would just dig around with our heads down, just kind of keep going through in between the bales. And we would play tag, hide and go seek kind of style, and we would be chasing each other and trying to find each other around in there. One day, me and my brother and a friend were climbing up in the mow to play, and it was probably around 30 feet or better that day. And as we were climbing the ladder up, I remember my brother looking down and said, "Make sure we don't get too close to the edge so we don't fall," because there was nothing below us on the floor that day. So as we got up there, we were doing our thing and started digging into the hay and started tunneling through. So I found a direct path and I started scooting along. Then all of a sudden daylight broke out and I'm looking down and I see that wood floor that was so ominous looking at me before. And then I realized I was starting to fall. I went to reach back and there was nothing I could grab onto. And so as I fell, there was nothing to fall onto. And when I just closed my eyes and quickly prayed, dear Jesus, I wanted him to help me and save me. And when I landed really hard and I bounced. And then I sat there, and when I opened my eyes, I realized that I landed on two bales that came down, and they were right underneath me. It was amazing. It blew me away because it didn't make any sense. Those bales shouldn't have been there. It was stripped clean, the floor. And now all of a sudden, there were two bales there, specifically there, to comfort my fall so I wouldn't hurt myself. I truly believe that God answered my prayer. God heard the thoughts that were inside my head. Some days we do things that are irresponsible, things that we shouldn't do. And that day, I shouldn't have put myself in danger, especially when I was warned by my brother. But God saw through that. He saw on the inside of me and saw that I was a little boy who was calling out to him. And that's when he came and he rescued me. Science proves that if two objects fall at the same time, they will hit the floor right at the same time also. That if you took two balls, let's say a field hockey ball and a tennis ball, and dropped them at the same time, they would land on the ground at the same time. There is no way that those two bales of hay could have fell down, past me, scooched underneath me. That for sure was God.
Mark believed in God and trusted in him when his life was in danger. He not only experienced God's love, but he also experienced a miracle that changed his life. Let's break into our small groups and see what this looks like in our own lives.